Hi, Chris Tenny-Brittian. We are here for week 7 of our course on conflict utilization. We're in the next to last week. Can you believe it? Already this week, we are talking about self-preservation and self-care. You may kind of giggle. Self-preservation, what do you mean? Well, self-preservation means that we preserve ourselves when we find ourselves, particularly in highly conflictual situations. A part of that self-preservation, of course, is self-care, but it's how do we preserve who we are, our integrity, and more importantly, let me say, our health. When how do I say this? When we find ourselves or when we are in highly conflictual circumstances or situations, we are immediately at risk. The highest number, the greatest number of disability payouts or disability payments that are ongoing for ministers are due to, indirectly at least, conflict. It's stress, high blood pressure, stroke, heart attack, diabetes that's out of control comes into that, back problems, mainly back problems, stroke, and heart attacks. And all of those are directly related to high stress. Within just a short period of time, about 2 years or so, I watched several. Now, this isn't one or two, this is several ministers, male ministers, who were diagnosed and then had to be treated for prostate cancer. And the one variable all of those ministers, besides being male, had in common were that they were in or had been in conflictual congregations and that they had been the target of some of that conflict. Women, I knew 3 women who within a year and a half of each other had accidents that then rendered them unable to serve. And in 2 of those cases, 7 years later, they are still receiving disability as a result of those accidents. I know 3 other women ministers who were clergy women who were in highly conflictual congregations who were diagnosed and then had surgery and follow-up treatment for breast cancer. It's not something for us to play with. Now, it's very possible that God is calling you to stay in a conflicted situation, in a ministry, a congregational ministry, denominational ministry, vocation that is highly stressful, but even more than that, highly conflictual. And you're trying to figure out, should I stay or should I go? What is best for me? And let me tangent there for a moment. There was a minister who served at a church where I was a layperson when I was new into ministry. He was the last of the 4 ministers that I got to have as my pastor over a short 7-year period. And this pastor, had been for about 5 of those years just increasingly conflict laden. And in that year, this minister said, I'm gonna stand firm, stand strong, stand with people who really want to have a future in this church. And it was awful. It was the first time I saw what I've come to know as projection. A letter that was written, Methodist Church, United Methodist, a letter was written by the Pastoral Relations Committee to the bishop saying how the minister was doing this and was doing that, was doing this and was doing that. In reality, that was behavior that those members of the Pastoral Relations Committee had been doing and pouring out. That was being handed to the minister rather than, as they asserted, the minister handing to them, this group directly. I had the opportunity to talk to the district superintendent. He called me one evening and we talked about what was going on. And he's, in fact, the one who taught me the term projection. And as we were talking, I begged him, I said, please, please return him to our church. Please let him stay here because if he goes, it will never go forward. The church, it's going to die, but even more that we lose this United Methodist, this church, United Methodist presence within our neighborhood. And we so need our neighborhood. We so need what we and this church can provide. And he said to me, what I have to take, and my final decision will be based on what is best for this minister and his family. I found that really interesting. Praise God for Cornelius Henderson, Bishop Henderson, who said, I'm going to take care of my ministers. I'm going to make sure that there's a good fit between minister and congregation, and I'm not going to let a congregation kill a minister. In the end, our pastor was moved to another congregation. He was bivocational. He was placed in another congregation. Within 5 years, that congregation closed. They received basically a chaplain, somebody who would allow them, a hospice chaplain, who stood by them and helped them to die, quite literally. Yule got out there and he was lucky. He was there for a year. And again, I appreciate Dr. Henderson, Bishop Henderson, helping to take care of him in those ways. And I'll tell you, our pastor said, I will stay. I will stay. I think that's what's best for the congregation. But Dr. Henderson taught us that sometimes we have to do what's best for the pastor, for ourselves, for the leader. We leave churches, ministers leave churches in one of 6 ways. I call them the 6 D's of departure from a ministry. The first is design. Would that this is the way we extend calls and we receive calls and we make appointments in our churches. Design says this is what our next steps are, right? We have to have a strategy, that mission vision piece. And we ask, what kind of leader do we need? What kind of minister, what kind of ministry do we need that will take us to that next step, that next place, that next level in our ministry? Do we need a good teacher? Do we need a good administrator? Do we need somebody who's a bit in your face or forceful? Do we need somebody who can be a little gentler? But please, not nice. Kind, yes. Nice, no, not codependent. Okay, never codependent. Anyways, so what is the design? And then we ministers, we need to know what we're good at, what our giftings are. So we can look at a church and we could say, I think my gifts would really match their needs, their current needs. Or you know what? I don't think that that's me. I think I need to keep searching or looking and waiting until it's time for me to go to the church that's being prepared for me and my particular gifts. And then we would know when we go to those churches when we've done our work and it's time for us to leave. Or we go, as often happens in conflictual congregations, we go and we discover that the ministry they really need is not the ministry that we brought or that we bring or that we excel at. When I went to Bellevue Christian Church, I was told they wanted to grow. In reality, once I found out that they had fired all of those ministers and that they were heavily mired in a pattern of conflict and years of grieving born of that conflict, I had to say what what you all need, said this to the leadership or executive committee, what you all need is a minister who is trained in conflict. At that point would have said conflict mediation, a minister trained in conflict mediation and can help you with grief. And I know that my time has come to a close because this is what I bring, not that. So I left by design. Um, Okay, so we leave by design. The second way we leave is by decision, that we decide it's time for me to leave. It may be situational, it may be because we'd rather live somewhere else. There are all kinds of reasons that we decide to leave. Now, often our decisions are born on design. We just don't always know that, or usually we don't know that. Again, it's not something that we're taught nor something that we're encouraged to practice, probably because we don't know that we should. Anyways, so we can leave by decision. Third way we can leave is by determination. That's when someone else decides for us. So we leave even though we would choose not to leave, but at this point, and when we're talking about conflict, we leave because of the board, the congregation, someone has decided it's time for us to leave. And so they've determined, and let me get my terms straight, they've determined it's time for us to leave. When you get to this point, when others are making determinations for you, if you're asked to leave, do not dig your heels in. When your leadership asks you to leave, do not dig your heels in. It is not necessarily the time for you to go. But, wait, let me say again. Don't dig your heels in. It may not be time for you to go. On another hand, if you don't have the support of your leadership, if you don't have people that are walking with you that are able to help turn the tides, then don't stay. You've lost your influence, you've lost your favor, your ministry is seriously compromised. It's time to go. So we can leave by design, we can leave by decision, we can leave by determination, someone else deciding on our behalf. We can leave by disability, and I'll put disability and death together. And those are those situations that I mentioned to you. Those were examples of disability and even death. So if we do not leave when it's time for us to leave, particularly when it's been determined that we should leave, we will leave by disability or death. That's that martyr piece. Be a great martyr if that's what God is calling you to be. But no, it will lead to death. And the sixth way that we get to leave is done. That's at retirement, that we finally get to be done. A lot of people leave conflictual ministries because they're old enough and they can be done. Hear over and over again, I'm just holding out until I can retire. I just need 2 years. Let me make it through 3 years so I can be done. The challenge with that in my heart and hope for ministers, in particular, of course, is that they will finish well, that they will finish well, that they will finish with possibilities to do what they didn't get to do, to experience what they didn't get to experience in those ministry, those working, professional, I don't know what to call it. You know what I'm trying to say. Pre-retirement years. We want to finish well. We want to finish with our health. We want to finish with relationships with our family. We want to be nurturing relationships with special people that will be there to be with us, to be family, whether legally or relationally. Well, it's relationally. We want to have developed friendships so that we have good friends to travel with us through those retirement years so we can do what we choose to do finally. Done, finishing well. So we leave by design, decision, determination, disability, or death, or being done, finishing well. All right, so all of that begs this question then, self-care. How are you taking care of yourself? How are you taking care of yourself? What is working for you? We need to take vacation every year. If you're in a place to negotiate for full-time ministry, 4 weeks. 4 weeks with 4 Sundays. Start your vacations on Monday and them on Sunday. Mondays they start, Sundays they finish. If you start a vacation, if you plan to come back from vacation on a Sunday and be back in the pulpit, you will not have that full week because you will be working on the worship service and your sermon. Vacations start on Mondays, which really allows you to start your vacation after worship or on Sunday afternoon, Monday through Sunday. You need to take a week of retreat at least once a year. You need to take a weekend of retreat twice a year, and you need to take a day of retreat every month. It's self-care. Your doctor's appointments, get your immunizations, take the tests that you're told to take, get you to a dentist, get to a massage therapist on a regular basis. Do something nice for yourself. If you're in an intimate type of relationship, make sure you have date night every week. And if you end up working a 7-day week or a 60, 70, 80-hour week, then add the extra day off on the other end. Don't just sacrifice your days off. Now, I know if you're part-time, you're probably not getting many days off. That's why you need at least 2 weeks, 2 full weeks out of the church work, vacation, right? Where you're not worrying about any of that. And trust me, the church is going to go on. If it's not going to go on without you, then you either have a savior complex, or you have created or you are nurturing a codependent congregation. Do not sacrifice yourself for your church. Before I give you this, the question, your reflection question for this week, I want to say one more piece. It's about reaction. And I have a friend, I may have I've told you this before. I have a friend who is a therapist and was pastoring a very, very tough, conflicted congregation. And he said to me once, he said, Dr. Chris, people spend more time in my head than I do. I love that. That members of his church, particularly those who were spewing antagonism towards him, he said, they are spending more time in my head than I am. And we talked about how when people think that you're thinking something, they're already preparing their reactions to that. So you're not even at a level playing field. And don't we do that too sometimes? We're already thinking, oh my gosh, this is how this meeting is going to go, and so is going to say this, and so is going to say that. Oh my gosh, here comes him down the hallway. Want to go the other way because I know that this is what he's thinking and this is what he's going to say. And already we're preparing how we're going to react to that. I mean, we're already reacting to what hasn't even happened. We're veering down the way. We're turning our head. Oh my gosh, you pass somebody in the hallway and you turn your head when it's one of whoever it is, a key antagonist or not. No, no, no. We don't treat people that way. Even those we don't like. And in their head, we don't think like us. Or we know they don't like us. So we react. And oh my gosh, talk about setting up a situation long before we get there. Now we have to be prepared, and we don't want to be naive. We don't want to be stupid. We want to listen and take into account how, but we have got to step back and not get so ramrodded, so anxious, so fearful that we're reacting to our own thoughts and fears. 12 steps talk about fear being false expectations appearing real. False expectations appearing real. We make it up before we ever get there. Think about that. Okay, so here's your reflection question this week. I want you to think about how you take care of yourself and how you're going to take care of yourself this next year. Now, got to get through this class. You've got to get into Advent. You've got to get through the holidays. You can't start it. I'm going to give you something to practice, though. So I want you to think, how am I going to take care of myself? Look, pull out your calendar. When am I going to take vacation this week? When am I going to take my weeks of vacation this next year? Approximately, okay? You may not know, but at least put them on the calendar so that when you get there, you can shift them to another place if you have to, or you can pull it closer if you have to. What days am I going to take my retreat? And it's flexible, but be intentional about it and be careful that you don't start moving around, and the next thing you know, all your retreat days are gone. Care plan. The second question is, how are you going to take care of yourself this week? How are you going to take care of yourself this week? Take care. Please enjoy. Please take care of yourself.